Everyone, welcome back to Fix and Reuse, and today's topic is going to be a repair that I made on a heat pump. So that was at my previous house in Brampton. One day, out of the blue, the heat pump just stopped working for some odd reasons, and I would just try to turn it on using the remote in the house. So it was one of these sideways heat pump. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, with two remotes and two headless units. You would normally turn it on using the remote. And that day it was really hot. I wanted to turn the AC on and nothing was happening. So I thought something must be off with the AC unit, or the heat pump in my case. And the first thing you would normally check is the breaker. So I checked the breaker, everything was fine, resetted the breaker just to be on the safe side, tried again, nothing happened. So the next step is to look at the unit itself. So let's look at how that went. And now I made a little video of that as well, but I wanted to show you what that looks like. So this is the heat pump model that I had, right? So it's one of these sideways units that was sitting on the side of my house. As you can tell, it was right against the fence right here. So you didn't have a lot of clearance. You can put one of these square stand-up units that you would normally see in residential areas. So due to the lack of space, this unit was chosen at the time. So it's really, there's not much to it, right? To this kind of model. There are complex heat pumps naturally and industrial and all that. In this particular case, it was a pretty easy model. So I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look, see what's going on. So I popped up the cover here. You just have a few screws on the top. It's pretty easy to remove. And I accessed the inside. So before we look into this, this is the model that I had. So it's an so it's an LG LM-2430H2L with two circuits, right? So I had two headless units again on the installed in the house, and that was the specs of the unit. Not a recent model by any stretch of the mind, but it was working well up until that day. So there was no reason for it to stop working just like that. Now, on the side, there was also the electrical diagram. So if you look at it, and if you follow the your main power actually being at the bottom right here, you would normally see the full circuit, and you'll be able to determine what could be the problem. Again, this is not rocket science, right? So you have a set of big capacitors that are inside the unit. You have a few switches. You have your main PCB assembly, and you have a bunch of switches and safety mechanisms. What you see right in the middle here is the fuse. So T 3.15 amps, right? And that usually is the first thing you want to check, is whether that fuse is still good, right? So there are additional fuses in the circuit, the sub circuits as well. You find them here. FUS 250 volt, 2.5 amps. You have two of those. You have actually four of those. And in this particular case, the one I was interested in was that guy right there. So when you pop the top open, this is what you see on the inside. So it looks a little bit impressive at first, but fundamentally, you really don't have that much, right? So you have your two capacitors right there in the middle. You have a bunch of connectors. You have the fan that's sitting on the other side of this firewall there. And you have the PCB board that's actually right on the side here. So this is another view of that same unit. So you have a small PCB board here, but you have the main one is in the back right there with a whole bunch of relays and connectors. So, and if you look carefully here, you'll see there is a little fuse right there. This is actually the replacement fuse, the one that I installed in that unit after the fact. But the original one was actually a ceramic fuse. You couldn't see the inside, but it was definitely blown. So use a multimeter in a whole meter setting, and you check continuity, and you determine whether the fuse is good or not. It's actually a pretty easy test to do. Before you reach into the unit, turn the power off, right? So there's normally a box, like a switch box on the side of the unit. I'm not sure what, yeah, it shows right there. See up here, in the top right corner, that's a safety switch box. So you would turn that off, or you can turn it off straight on the breaker. Typically it's a 240 volt circuit, so look for a double breaker, right? In this particular case, I turned the power off. I was able to do some testing, and I knew there was no power at all because right on that little PCB board right there, the little circuit board, there are actually 3 LEDs. And normally when the power is on, even when the unit is off, the PCB will flash, right? So these LEDs will flash. And even more importantly, if there is a problem, they will flash in a certain pattern. And that allows you to then determine, depending on the number of times that the LEDs are flashing, what the problem could be. This is actually a troubleshooting mechanism. You will need to go back to the maintenance manual, and let's say you have your LEDs, so they're numbered, right? 1, 2, 3. They're actually flashing a certain sequence, or they're flashing a certain number of times. Then based on that, you refer back to the manual and you will be able to determine where the problem is, or at least where the problem can be. In this particular case, I had no flashing, none whatsoever, nothing. There was no power getting to the unit at all. So I figured it had something to do with the main power. So you would normally go through your troubleshooting testing, make sure there is power getting to the unit. Obviously, you need to turn on the power at that point and do so. Just be careful. You're dealing with power here, 240 volts. That's enough to kill you. 110 is enough to kill you already. So know what you're doing. Know your limits. Get in there. If you feel like I'm not responsible for whatever would happen to you. I'm just giving you some information about how I was able to solve my problem. But if you're careful enough and you have the right equipment, you should be able to perform all the tests necessary. And in this particular case, again, I was interested to determine whether there was power getting to the main fuse, which is in the top left corner right here. And based on that, I was able to determine that there was in fact no power getting to the unit. So I replaced the fuse and everything went back to life. Starting with the LEDs here, you can see them right in the middle in between the wires. And that was actually the cause of the problem. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you, because at the end, so you see I have my little multimeter in the back here. That little fuse was like $2, right? And it was at a time that, I didn't have much money aside, so I needed to really, and I typically do try to fix anything that fails in my house. But I'm trying to say is that a service call for an HVAC company would probably set you off $250, $300, possibly more, right? That's in Canada, Toronto or Brampton in my case. It's not cheap, right? So I wanted to see whether I could fix it myself. It could have been worse. Could have been a problem with the compressor. Could have been a performance issue when you don't have cold air coming out. Could have been low on refrigerant in the system. The fan could have failed. A number of things can fail in these units, but sometimes you get a power peak, or your power actually exceeds what it's supposed to be, and it's going to blow the fuse. And the fuse is actually doing its job in this case. It's basically preventing damage to the unit. Now, the next question, when you have a fuse that blows up, and I had that situation happen on a microwave oven, for instance, where the oven wasn't working anymore. I, again, removed the cover, waited a few hours for the capacitors to discharge, and make sure that I wouldn't do anything stupid, because you're dealing with crazy high voltages in microwave ovens. But again, the fuse was blown, right? So it's a stupid thing, but it happens more often than you think. So in that particular instance, the fuse was blown. It was a $3 fix, and it took me about an hour to do it. I pop the cover open, you test the fuse, remove the fuse, replace the fuse, and you turn the power back on, and you're back in business. So it's before you reach out for a specialist, if you have the equipment or if you know somebody who can actually help you with that, it's probably not a bad idea to double check whether it's something simple like that. And that's the reason why I'm sharing this information with you. So I'm gonna just play the video now that I made that day, and you'll see the LEDs and all this. But if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. I hope this is helpful. Okay, see you next time. Hi everyone. Quick video
to share with you a fix on an LG heat pump that was unresponsive. It seems to be fixed now, and the problem was a blown fuse on the main controller board that you can see here, right? So the fuse was completely gone. The symptoms, I have two head units. This is a ductless system, and both units were not responding to the remote. And I figured it was something with the power. Checked the fuse, checked the main power switch here. Everything was fine. I had power getting to the terminal down there, so things was working, but I still didn't get power. So notice that fuse is kind of tucked under the edge here, so you can't really see it well, but that was the fix on my end. So hopefully it's going to save you a few $100 so that you don't have to call a technician. Good luck.